Hey guys, we're talking about how we measure the economy today. We finished up our talk with externalities last week. Just a couple things about the externalities. I haven't gotten a really good chance to look through a whole bunch of you guys' answers yet. Some of you guys are a little bit, um, I don't know, kind of confused maybe. An externality isn't something that like you get annoyed by necessarily. Okay, so, and I'm talking negative externalities. A negative externality can be anything as simple as like if your neighbor has a dog that barks all the time, or if it can just be something that like you wish that wasn't there. And so anyway, some of you guys maybe can change your answers. I'll have you some of you change your answers too as we kind of move forward. If you haven't gotten to that stuff yet, just kind of keep in mind it doesn't have to be something super super formal. Okay, and again, same thing with like a positive externality could just be that there's a bunch of kids that live in your neighborhood. Like for me, for example, we live in a neighborhood, there's a bunch of kids. That's a positive externality, right? You can't really put a price on it necessarily, but it's something that benefits you that you don't have to pay for, so to speak. Okay. Or again, the negative side is something that you have to deal with, but your person that you're dealing with doesn't have to pay for it. So, anyway, just as a little bit of a clarification there, we're talking measuring the economy today, which over the course of the next probably 5 months or so is going to be a very, very, very interesting topic of discussion. As especially we elect a president, and so anyway, we're going to define some terms. We're going to look at some stats. Not all of it today. We're going to keep some things short. I think that the participation's been good, and the shorter the better sometimes. And so I think this stuff's important. Um, so anyway, hopefully you learned something, and um, you know you're finding a way to keep busy. So, measuring the economy. First of all, let's talk about what the economy does. All right. An economy is going to go through some stages. And I like to compare it to, similar to like you and your health, right? Like, hopefully you're healthy a lot more often than you're sick. And, at the same time, you don't really know when you're going to get sick. Um, and you don't really know when you're going to stop being healthy necessarily. And so an economy is kind of the same way. And it goes through what is referred to as these business cycles. Okay. So this economic activity, we're going to talk about GDP, unemployment, and inflation here as we move forward through the next couple weeks. But understand, okay, that business cycles, all right, the economy goes through periods of growth. Sometimes they're referred to as expansion. Sometimes they're referred to as recovery. If you would have been paying attention back in 2011 and 12 and 13, um, you would have heard the term our economy is recovering from the recession that took place in 08, 09. Eventually we get to the point where things are at its best. I would say that point was probably in the middle of February this year. We've had this coronavirus thing going on, and people are scared to spend money because they don't have money because they've lost their job for a period of time, or B, they're not sure when they can go out and spend money safely, so to speak. And so, we are in a period right now of what is referred to as contraction. Okay, our economy is declining, right? Unemployment's getting worse, and those are things that you guys understand, right? Some of you guys, it's hit home really, really hard, and it's going to be something that is probably going to continue for hopefully not very much longer, but as we get closer to May 1st and the day the governor kind of says we might start moving things forward in the positive direction, then hopefully that happens. Like I said, I compare these to like your health, right? Our economy was doing very well from 2011 till 2020, right? And now hopefully we're going to be sick just for a short period of time, no pun intended. But hopefully, our economy can get back to going where it's going. Okay. The biggest thing about these cycles is, like I said, we don't know how often they happen. So you can see this is the unemployment rate historically over the course of, well, I cut it off in 2010, but the point of the graph is to show you that we don't know when the worst time period is going to be, right? When unemployment becomes the worst. We don't know when the best time is going to be, when unemployment becomes going to, theoretically the best, right? And so it's not like, well, unemployment's 4% today, so that means it's going to get worse tomorrow. That's not really how it works. Okay. And we can also see these gray bars are defined as recessions. And a recession is simply defined a period of time over 6 months that the economy produced less stuff. okay, for that period of 6 months consecutive. And so you can see when the economy struggles, well, if we're not producing stuff, we don't have to hire people. If we don't hire people, people don't have jobs. And you can see that the unemployment rate spikes during these recessions. And then it recovers. It gets better slowly but surely. But again, very similar to getting sick, right? I'm really, really sick for a really short period of time. And then, I get healthier and healthier and healthier. Hopefully I'm better off on the time after over a course of time. And, our economy acts in a similar way. Okay. And just to kind of add on to that a little bit, there's certain things the government can do, just like a doctor could do, to make you better faster. You get medicine, and the economy can be helped by the government sometimes. The government right now is trying with these stimulus checks to stimulate the economy. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means we're trying people to spend money. And so when people spend that money, it creates jobs elsewhere. It creates incomes elsewhere that people can use to spend throughout the economy also and support themselves and pay their bills and all those things. Now, as much as you can say the government can help things, not so much in the United States case throughout its history, but the government can also make things worse. Just like a doctor could choose the wrong medicine, or they can give you too much medicine. Like the government can't just give everybody all their money for their salary. Eventually, the government has to pay that money back. That's a little bit a different topic for a different day, but those are some things that you've got to understand. Okay, so these cycles are irregular. Understand that. There are some different stats we'll look at. We're not going to talk too much about them. The housing market's a big one. Price of houses go up. That means the economy is doing well. GDP is the one that we look at to figure out recessions. Unemployment rate is kind of the one that happens behind a little bit. Okay, because again, people don't hire somebody just because they have a good week. People don't fire somebody just because they have a bad week in terms of making money. And so those are some different things. You don't need to necessarily know those. We don't talk much about them. I define that term recession of an economic period decline for at least 6 months. Okay, what we'll eventually see. All right, and this is a graph here of blue is unemployment and red is inflation. Okay, and so you can see when unemployment's really high, inflation goes down. Well, why would unemployment, when it's high, make inflation go down? Well, remember, people don't have money, so they're not spending it. And the way that inflation is caused is because people spend money, right? Or borrow money or do anything that, is going to increase prices. We talk about, it's just the demand curve that we talked about, back whenever we were into that stuff right before we got out of school. So anyway, that is one thing that you'll want to be able to understand. We're going to get to that in eventually. Okay, moving forward, we're going to talk about GDP first, then we'll get into unemployment and inflation. Keep up the good work. Make sure that you are still taking care of your business, and I'll be back shortly here with your assignment. Okay, pretty simple assignment for you here today. Here's what I want you to do. Okay, so you're going to go into Google, and I'm not even being picky how you find an article, and I want you to Google search something with this coronavirus and the economy, because we're going to try to measure the economy, right, on what happens with coronavirus. So anyway, you can type in whatever you want. I'm just going to go with COVID economic impact. Okay, and so find whatever article. There's a whole bunch of conversation that they're going through and all this stuff, and I am simply just going to pick an article. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. You're going to read the article. All right, and again, take some time, find a main point of it. Okay, and I will include this in your email. So you're going to find the main point. All right. And then when you email me back, make sure that you include the link. Okay. So if I'm composing an email, right, you're going to send it to me, right? Subject day 11. The first thing you'll do is tag in the link, right? And then give some main points. So let's just say one main point, one agreement, that you agree with, 1 disagreement, 1 question for the author. Okay, so tell me what the article was about, maybe the title, give me the thing, 1 thing you agree with, 1 thing you disagree with, 1 question you would have for the author. Okay, pretty straightforward. Hopefully you learned something. We will be in touch on Friday.